So welcome to Michael Tudorie Show, and I'm very pleased today to have my first guest, Richard Bell, who is the founder and president of Bell Alliance, very well-known real estate company in Vancouver, specializing in real estate transaction, immigration, wills and estates, and we'll get some insights from Mr. Bell about what his company does, his experience. So to introduce yourself to the viewers and listener, if you perhaps maybe tell a bit about your company, your journey, and most important, about your love for art and your company donations to Cambodia and South America countries for building houses, because that's very, very, very important piece.
Yeah, Michael, that's talking about what we've been up to and what our passions are would take a lot of time. But just quickly, the law firm Bell Alliance LLP is a firm that is on West Broadway in Vancouver. It's, I guess I define it as sort of a community-based law firm. We only do solicitors work. We run a really large wills and estates, real estate practice, as well as immigration and corporate commercial. Our service model actually is something that comes from a close relationship I have with my mother. So the standard is, how would you like your mother to be treated? And I'm smiling because, in fact, that actually sets a really, really high standard. So when there is a problem in terms of a file, it's pretty easy for me to say to the team, so if it was your mother, what should we be doing? So we have a team of 80 people, growing fairly quickly because the model of community-based lawyers that you can actually talk to, sort of a personal approach to law, as we often talk about that. And our community base is really also a focus on helping the community. There's a number of organizations we support. But a number of years ago, I realized that, we need to take a slightly more global perspective as we look at helping others. And because we do such a large real estate practice, It was just natural. And we, so I'm a founder and sit on the board of World Housing, and we build housing throughout the developing world. But our most recent project was actually in Vancouver, where it was a center in the East Side for women and their family. And again, World Housing includes parts of the developing world where people are homeless or under sheltered. So I think that's a quick summary. We love what we do in the community, and it's the team, really proud of the team.
Yeah, you're well known in the real estate community, and my office, Remax Select Properties, we rely on your advice, either from yourself or Kushal or anyone else, in a pre-sale, resale, commercial side of business. Always very supportive, and I wouldn't recommend anyone else for any real estate transactions.
Okay, thank you, Michael.
One of the things probably we want to talk about is about wills and estates, which lots of people don't think about until it's needed. I know, some people, they do their will online, but that's good as Zillow is doing your evaluation of your house, right? So there's no personal approach, and you bring that to a will. So I guess for the listener and viewers, what's some of the consideration if someone doesn't have a will or they need to update their will? Because I know there's three things in life: death, taxes,
and paying lawyers.
So without the will, it's a long road for estate people who have to deal with it if someone passes away, unfortunately, sometimes.
Yeah. So without a will, essentially what happens is that the provincial legislation determines what the distribution of your assets will be. And, it's pretty logical, although it doesn't necessarily fit every circumstances, but it's, to spouse, and if there's no spouse, children, if there's no children, then siblings or parents and siblings. So it clearly sets out what would happen. It's a more cumbersome process, of course, and it certainly doesn't deal with those things that should be dealt with in a will. And there's just a whole bunch of examples. But what I thought, Michael, I would just sort of highlight some of the most important things that people need to be thinking about when they're doing their will.
Sure.
And one of the most important things when they're doing their will, depending on how old they are, they should also be thinking about, should their kids be getting their wills done? Should their parents be getting their wills done? In addition to wills, the importance of powers of attorney and representation agreements. Powers of attorneys are for financial and legal matters. Representation agreements are for healthcare. But if we look at wills and a standard scenario is a young couple with young children. What happens if something happens to both of the parents? Is there a guardian that's been appointed? Is there a trust created for those young children? We've seen situations where there's been a failure to create trusts for the younger people. And one of the ones we came across, a young boy at the age of 19, young man at the age of 19 inherited $2 million because there was no trust.
Wow.
And that ended up being a sad story, as lots of new friends and lots of drugs and alcohol and all of that flowed from having that much money at that point in time. So clearly what you're doing is in your will, you're identifying what is the distribution of the estate. And you're asking the what ifs. Okay, what happens if my spouse predeceases me? What happens if it is a family disaster? What happens to my estate at that point?
So anyone can have a will. If they're younger, they're a growing family, anyone can have a will, no? It's not only for elderly families.
No, I think what all that really changes is the dynamics of some of the language that should be in the will based on where someone is at in life. I see so many wills, and particularly when I'm advising people who have sort of hair my color, gray and older, you're getting there, Michael. The standard wills basically say, give to my spouse. If my spouse predeceased, give to my children. And then worrying about the trusts if they're under a certain age. In most instances, when children potentially are going to inherit, we usually see trusts which provide that the funds can be used for their education and support, but they don't get control till 25, and normally there's a percentage, and then the balance normally at 30, except on larger estates. But as I deal with sort of that older crowd, that I often raise for them is, wouldn't it be nice if you could have a legacy connection directly with your grandchildren? So, it's funny when I raise that, people go, yeah, if something happens to the two of us, we're 70, 80 years old, we'd really like to, instead of it just 100% going to our children, we'd like to give a little bit to the grandchildren, so there is that connection. And then particularly for the surviving grandparent to see their grandchildren receive something from their grandfather or their grandmother. It's just everyone that I talk to in that sort of scenario, they go, yeah, no one's talked to me about that before, and I do want to have something directly to my grandchildren.
That's one way to help young people get into real estate, for down payment deposit, and so that, as the real estate in Vancouver gets so expensive, that's one way to help.
And we see a lot of that during the baby boomers and their parents while they're alive. What I think everyone in the industry refer to as the bank of mom and dad. And
correct, yeah.
I expect there would be half the volume of real estate that we have now if it wasn't for the bank of mom and dad.
Yeah, they're sitting in lots of wealth, so for sure. Right?
Lots of wealth, values, real estate values, as you and I both know, has gone up significantly. But the other thing that I often raise with seniors is, so if a child predeceased, right now their will says give to that child's children under a trust. So in other words, their grandchildren. And so we get into the discussion about son-in-law and daughters-in-laws. When someone's in their 80s, their children may be in long-term marriages. So What's interesting is that grandparents or the parents of sort of baby boomers, and they tend to think about a granddaughter and not so much about the son-in-law. So
Right.
we are often in situations where the older clients are saying, yeah, if my son predeceased me, I'd like a portion of that child's estate to go to my daughter-in-law or my son-in-law in the case. And then the balance held in trust. And, if it's a marriage of 30 years and it's a close connection, again, that's not something that's been talked about in estate planning by estate planning professionals with their clients. And I have this basic sort of process where I go, let's assume one of you is going to live to be 100, because that's not unusual.
It does happen.
Sitting across me from here in the couch is my 93-year-old mother, who I take care of, and she continues to say she's going to make it to 100, and I go, oh my God. Anyways, it's my honor to be able to take care of it.
Yeah, for sure. So this is a very personalized approach to doing a will, like which other people don't talk about it. So it's customized. There's no general will and estate and how they take care of the family needs. I know from my experience, I specialize in downsizing, and I have a senior real estate professional designation where 3 or 4 times a year I help families who they deal with estate, and I help them with their real estate sale. And I have an experience with last year with a lady. She lived here on her own for the past 4 years. Her husband passed away, but all her family was in Toronto and Winnipeg. And they came over and they pulled their hair out because they had to deal with so many details. They're all outlined in will, but there's, the CRS settlement, tax settlement, probate, admin documents, technological issues, how to get into my aunt's email to get the password for this. So there's so many implications. People don't think about it. Only when push comes to shove, and it's overwhelming to deal with. So
I often
considering people's individual needs.
Yeah. So I often, say to my clients, when you think about real estate, the 3 magic words are location, location, location. When I talk to clients about estate planning, the 3 magic words are simplify, 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 so that you don't end up passing away with 5 different bank accounts at 3 different banks. You want to be able to get your affairs in order at any point, and because we do know things go very wrong, and we just hope it's not us that it happens to. But we've seen some disasters just recently, obviously, in terms of British Columbia floods and landslides where lives have been lost. So it really is important to sort of not be paranoid about what may happen, but to simply say, okay, what is my obligation to my family? And I think I always say to clients, it's not about you, actually, it's about your family. That you want to make sure if something happens to you, and eventually it will, that you have simplified their life, because going through what you've just described is very, very difficult for families. We deal with, at any point in time, 100 families that are going through the probate process. Wow. And it's a daunting process. It can take a long time. Wrapping up an estate, even a basic estate, it usually is a couple of years to get there.
Yeah, this example, they're still dealing with it 2.5 years later. So
it's I do a lot of public speaking, and I always say the only people that ever agree to be executors are those that haven't done it before.
Correct.
And there's always a few people in the audience that have done one, and they're coming to a seminar to try and see if the next one can be a little simpler for them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do seminars maybe 2 or 3 times a year on downsizing, obviously before COVID.
Right. That's right.
Dealing with logistics of, downsizing, decluttering, because that's the biggest thing people, they can get over. How can I get rid of all my stuff I acquired over 40 years, and how do I sell my estate, and what do I do with the china cabinet or whatever, right? So
Well, yeah, because mostly the kids don't want that stuff.
No, not in a one-bedroom condo in downtown.
So it's so I think that again, it just goes back to everyone needs to, and I think the COVID world has caused people to give a little more thought to this. I know within our estate planning practice, we are finding that clients have been motivated to get their affairs in order.
Yeah.
So it's just an important step. As I say, it's about your family. It's not so much about you in terms of getting your affairs organized.
So everyone needs lots of education because all these terms are jargons to us, but people like, what does it mean, CRA settlement, or how do I do that? And it's like I said, it becomes overwhelming at the wrong time. So public education is very important, and
Yes.
I hope people come to you to get the right answer. So.
Yeah, no, it'd be my pleasure to help. As I say, we love the perspective of our firm, which is sort of community based. We basically, our client base is from the first time buyer of a small condo through to helping the family when a loved one has passed away.
Yeah, on the real estate side, without changing the topic too much, I know you've been involved with a very innovative way of software good for developers and also for clients, where they can sign up, and this makes the process much easier.
Yeah, it's I do a lot of thinking as I'm either walking to work or riding my bike to work, and a true story being one day I was walking to work and I said, why do people line up in the rain in Vancouver to buy something that doesn't exist in a pre-sale? So developed a technology which is called a Vesto, and most of the developers in BC and more in Ontario, and basically it eliminates paper, and that's always been a passion. Why do we have this paper floating around? There's lots of
God's sake for many professionals, many individuals to use that. So I found that very, very helpful.
Yeah, no, it's great, and then we're talking data, right? So data can move without having to put it in the mail or emailing it around. It just is pure data that can populate banking information, lawyer information. So it is it's a big change in the industry. It took a little while for adoption, but I was thrilled to be able to be part of
everyone is using it for sure.
Yeah.
So to close up, maybe we'll touch on a little bit on real estate, because that's what I personally live in day out. What do you foresee happening next year? As far as the not wilderness state, but any new details? As we know, there's so many rules from the government, so many rules from the real estate board, FINTRAC. So many people have the hands in real estate. What do you foresee happening in the near future? Is it going to make it easier or harder to buy real estate?
Yeah, I think technology is going to help. I think there's continuing work to improve the technology. I mean, you think back in terms of what the forms used to look like when you would do up a paper copy and run around and get someone to sign it.
And send a fax, maybe, right?
Yeah, send a fax, yeah. There's people listening to this. Yeah, I was going to say there's people that don't know what a fax is, I'm sure. So, and I think, the governments have all made it much more complex, and I'm not really overly convinced that all the rigor of paperwork and identification they're putting us through is really solving many problems out there in terms of fraudulent transactions. But I do continue to see a robust real estate market. I'm sure because I certainly hear the stories of lack of product. I heard a record being set in Kelowna of, I think, 39 offers on one piece of property about 2 weeks ago. What that tells me is there's 38 buyers in Kelowna that are anxious to buy something. The same applies in the Lower Mainland. The Lower Mainland's a very, very popular area. It always will be. So we historically see little slowdowns, but they don't last very long. But it's just, prices during COVID have increased rather dramatically, but I think the demand is there. There's a lot of wealth in Canada in general. So I expect the market will continue to be strong through next year.
And it comes down to inventory. There's lack of inventory, and continue to be. Where we live in Vancouver, they can't build any more land, fortunately. So people want to move here, and they will move here. I'm sure you have some stories for immigrants who want to use your office for
immigration.
Immigration purposes.
There is a movement happening globally, and we're seeing discussions in the Lower Mainland here. But just some examples: New Zealand passed a national legislation that basically said in any of the major cities that 3 strata units, 3 stories high, could be built on single-family lots. Governor of California just made a significant announcement. Oregon has imposed increased densification in single-family lots. I sit on the board of Small Housing BC, and we're certainly looking to promote the concept of people being able to build strata units on small scale, ground-oriented living, as opposed to being forced to live into a high-rise. And
this has been in discussion for many years. I'm part of UDI as well. And I've been talking about for years to change the zoning and all this, but it's a slow process. And
but we know Victoria Council received support in February about that. The mayor in Vancouver has been talking about it. I built the family compound. We've got 4 generations living on a piece of dirt, but it's in separate units that are not stratified, which creates some issues from a financing perspective. But I think we can look forward to some creative solutions around ground-oriented redevelopment of single-family neighborhoods, so that it's not creating huge pressures, but it's creating new communities with lots of young children in those communities.
Yeah, more supply we need a lot. So.
Yeah.
Mr. Bell, thanks so much for being on the show. Will you kindly tell the viewers and listeners where they can find you and how the best way to get in touch with you?
Yeah, so bellalliance.ca. You can learn a lot about the firm. We launch a new website in a couple of weeks, which we're really excited about. And it'll just give you a sense of who we are and our commitment to community and the different areas of practice. So bellalliance.ca. Thank you. I look forward to work with you in the new year. Okay. And for those listeners, please download, subscribe, not to miss the next episode of Michael Tudorie Show. And wish you happy holidays. Yeah, happy holidays, everyone. Okay, bye now. Yep.